So there was a very unfortunate situation that happened in Port-au-Prince. I'm sure a lot of you all saw it on the news, but if you haven't seen it, then I'll just give you a quick little summary about what happened. So on that day, there was a Spirit airline plane that was trying to land in Port-au-Prince. They were hit by bullets and someone was injured. Thankfully, they were not seriously injured. Oh my God, thankfully. So they didn't land in Port-au-Prince. Instead, they went over to the DR, which is on the other side of the island, and that is where they landed. And then JetBlue and American Airlines, they were also hit, but they didn't realize it until they landed in the States. Right now, we have a transitional council. We haven't had a president since July 7th, 2021. That is when Jovenel Moise was assassinated. So the transitional council wanted to get rid of the prime minister that they initially selected and swear in another prime minister. And that was supposed to happen on November 11th. So the day that everything happened, that's when the new prime minister was going to be sworn in. So the people who did not want everything to go smoothly, did not want the new prime minister to be sworn in, they called up their gang friends. Okay, I'm telling you, this is public knowledge, okay? This is public knowledge. This is all over social media. Everybody knows this is what happened. They called up their gang friends and said, act a fool today. Create chaos in the capital. Create chaos to make it impossible to swear in this new prime minister. And despite it all, the new prime minister was sworn in by the end of the night. So they did all of that for nothing. All of it was in vain because we have a new prime minister. That prime minister was sworn in that night, that same night, not the next day, by the end of the night, that prime minister was sworn in. So then there was a FAA regulation saying that US planes couldn't fly a certain feet above Haiti's territory for the next 30 days. And even though the situation in Cap-Haitien is very different from Port-au-Prince, they initially had the ban on the entire country. And then later they eased up on it and said, okay, they can go to Cap-Haitien. We're about like a 6.5 hour drive away from Port-au-Prince, so we're not close. But at that time, the only U.S. commercial airline that flew to Cap-Haitien was Spirit. You know, I know back in the day, there were other airlines that flew to Cap-Haitien. Like you could still see the American Airlines signs in the airport. But for the past few years, it's been Spirit. And I kind of felt like even when they eased up on Cap-Haitien, I was like, Spirit is not coming back. I just felt like they're not coming back at all because they were hit, like someone was injured on the plane. You know, they couldn't land in Haiti. They ended up landing in, you know, the Dominican Republic. But I didn't cancel my appointment. I didn't cancel anything. Even my flight, I was like, I'm going to wait for Spirit to cancel my flight. Because if you cancel your own flight, they're going to give you a credit. If they cancel your flight, then you're going to get a refund if you request it. So I was keeping an eye out on the situation, just trying to see, you know, what's going to happen. Are there going to be any changes? And, you know, there are other ways for you to fly out of Haiti to go to the States. You can go through the Bahamas, you can go through Turks and Caicos, and then from those countries, you have the option to go to the States if you want. So I was like, okay, let me look at, you know, those flights. So my dentist is in Orlando. So I was like, okay, if I could get, you know, a flight to Orlando from one of those countries, that would be perfect so that I don't have to go to Miami or Fort Lauderdale and then Miami or Fort Lauderdale to Orlando. That's an extra flight. And so Bahamas was the best option because I go from Cap-Haitien to Nassau, Bahamas, and then from Nassau to Orlando. So the day came for me to go. The airport was a bit chaotic because it was Bahamas Air, Inter-Caribbean, and Sunrise Airways all next to each other. And the lines were, you know, all intermingled or whatever. So that airport isn't really suited to be an international airport. It feels more like a local airport that was transformed into an international airport. That's the vibe that the airport gives. Like, it's not large enough. So everybody was kind of like, you know, the lines were going all which way. So I was like, okay, where is the counter? Where is the counter that I need to get to? So I finally find it and I see a little tension at the counter. So I was like, what's the tension for? What's going on? I'm thinking the person was on standby, trying to buy a ticket the same day because I see people do that at the airport all the time. If you notice somebody on standby and you haven't checked in yet, make sure that you tell them, ma'am or sir, I'm not on standby. I have a ticket. So I need you to check me in before you check this person in. They're supposed to wait until the very end, but you know, there's like a cutoff time. So once you hit that cutoff time, they like, standby, come check in. Like, and you're gonna lose your spot. So, but that's not what was going on. I thought that's what was going on because there was like a discussion or whatever. I'm like, maybe there are no more seats, so that person can't, check in. So like, what they got going on? And it wasn't really resolved. The person was just like still standing there, like huffing and puffing or whatever. And then there was some other people on the side. I was like, what's going on over here? So I get to the counter, give my things, so I'm about to check in. The lady was like, check-in is closed. No one's checking in. Check-in closed at 9:30. I said check-in closed at 9:30 for a flight that's at 11:15. I've never heard of such a thing. They're like, yep, nothing we could do. We already sent the flight manifest. I said, huh? An hour and 45 minutes ahead of time? I've heard of an hour. If you want to play it safe, at least for Haiti, you have to get to the counter like at least an hour before, like in front of the person about to check in. Not at the airport, but like in front of the person an hour. So I was like, an hour and 45 minutes ahead of time, you're closing check-in? What are you talking about? So that's what everybody was arguing about. There was this lady off to the side and she was on the phone. She was crying. She was an American white lady who came to pick up some adopted children. So she was in the Bahamas. She got on the plane and came to Haiti. Her adopted children were waiting for her at the airport. So she went through immigration, then through customs, then came out the door and went to the counter to check in because she had her kids. So she was checking her kids in and herself in to get back on the plane because all she was doing was picking up the children to take them to the US. And so she did not want to stay in Haiti. She booked her flight in a way so that she will come on the same plane that's going to be leaving. Do y'all think they allowed her on the plane? They did not allow her on the plane. So she was crying. She was saying she didn't feel safe. She didn't have anywhere to stay and all this stuff. She was really like in a tough situation. The plane did not leave early and they did not give people who are on standby our seats. No. We confirmed with some people, okay? We confirmed, no, it was not a full flight. It was nothing like that. It was a scam. That's what it was. It was a scam. It was a scam. That's what it was. And so I instantly was like, oh, let me just go over to the other counter. I didn't realize that other people had already gone, but I just thought about it. I was like, wait, they also go to the Bahamas because the other airline is based out of Turks and Caicos, but they also have a flight to Nassau. And I was like, the goal is to get to Nassau. So let me go ask them, like, what time is the flight? So I was like, okay, I went over. I asked somebody before I got in line. I asked somebody, they're like, yeah, there's a flight. You could still get on it or whatever. So I went in the line, but there was already somebody in front of me. And they were a party of 3. So they were supposed to be on the flight that I was supposed to be on. And they had gone over to the next, counter before I did. So I was listening to everything going on so I could see like if they're getting on, how much and all that stuff. So I'm paying attention to what's going on. The person is, filling in all the information, give me your passport. It was like 3 of them. So, give me your passport, blah, blah, like filling out everything. Never mentioned the price yet. So just, doing everything, completing everything, printing stuff. And I was like, okay, they getting on the flight. Okay, cool. I thought they had already told them the price. And that's when they're like $816 per person. I was in shock. I was like, am I hearing this correctly? And then they told me something, you could only pay cash. Excuse me? Excuse me. Any other day you could just swipe your card, like, because you could go to the airport and buy a ticket the same day. And you could just, swipe your card or whatever. So I was like, what do you mean you can only pay cash? And what do you mean $816? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? So I said, what do you mean? Huh? I'm confused. I know it's the same day ticket, but I'm like, there's no way it's gonna cost that much to go up the street, okay? Because the Bahamas feels like it's up the street. There's no way it's gonna cost that much. It was really the cash part that got me, and I connected the dots. And then I realized the man who was doing the transaction was the man who was standing behind the lady at the other counter. And as he was standing behind her, I thought that he was a manager or something. He didn't have like the same uniform. He had like a plain like polo or something like that. And so I thought he was like a manager. So I'm thinking he's about to like jump in and give us, some explanation as to why they closed at 9:30. So I was kind of looking at him like, is he gonna say something? Because he was just standing there looking at what she was doing. No, that man worked for the other airline. So once I peeped game and I connected all the dots, okay, all the dots that were floating around, I connected all of them. I said, oh, okay, that's the type of time y'all on. Okay, goodbye. I don't know why they thought that was going to be realistic. I don't know, maybe they think when you're traveling to the States, because a lot of the people were traveling to the States. Imagine Flights were just suspended. There are people here on vacation. There are people here who are about to travel to the States for the first time. So everyone's kind of scrambling, trying to find a way out. And the airport in Port-au-Prince was closed. And so the only airport that was operating was that airport. And so people came from all over the country to go there. They're not necessarily trying to go to the Bahamas. I'm not saying that some people weren't going to the Bahamas or going to Turks and Caicos, but a lot of people were just using those countries to get to the final destination that they're trying to get to. And so they knew that. So I don't know if they think like, okay, when people are traveling to the States, they're going with a lot of money or something. I don't know. But I'm like, you think people just have all that cash on hand? Especially for us, where we can't even get that amount of dollars out in the bank at once. We have so many issues that we're dealing with. We have an economic crisis. Like when you go to the bank, you have your money in the bank, but they don't let you take it out. Like they only let you take out $100, like if it's in dollars, because we use dollars and good. And so if your bank account is in dollars and you want to get dollars and you want to take it out in dollars, they'll say you can only take out 100 per day. So yeah, if you want to take out the money, you would have to change it into good, and you could do it that way. But if you want dollars, like you have to pay something in dollars, then you're going to have to go to the bank on several days until you reach the amount of dollars that you want. And sometimes they don't even allow you to take 100. They say you can only take 50. So I'm just thinking like, what are these people thinking? Like they really think someone's going to have $800 in cash, like in dollars, just in their pocket, and they're just going to pay for the ticket because we're all in a desperate situation because of the flight situation. And that's what really angers me, is the fact that a lot of times, so this is just one example, but there are so many situations similar to this. It's just like we're in a situation that we have no control over. We did not ask to be in. We're in this situation because a group of people who just want to, make terrible decisions for the country, and you decide to take advantage of us. So it's not just this situation. There's so many things related to this. Like whenever the flights stop or whatever, any way people can make, some extra coins or whatever, they start taking advantage of you. So because I was going to a dentist and it wasn't something like that was an emergency and I had to go, like I had to find a way to go or whatever, like I didn't even try to change the ticket because they have flights on Saturdays and Tuesdays. And so there was someone in the office, because they have offices outside of the airport. They're like, oh, your ticket is non-refundable, but we could change it to Tuesday. I didn't even want to do that. Y'all really pissed me off, and I'm calling the airline once I get home, okay? Because, yeah, my non-refundable ticket is going to be refunded. I already knew it was going to be refunded because there was no explanation. They couldn't even make up a lie or whatever in the airport. So I was like, yeah, I'm calling the airline. So once I got home, I canceled my JetBlue flight. I did not lose any money. I was using a credit anyways, so I still had the credit, went back. So that was perfect. And then for my hotel, I got my points back. So it was cool. I canceled, but I got my points back. So that was good. So the last thing left to do was to call the airline, and I did just that. I did not want to call the local number, okay? I did not want to speak to anyone in this country, okay? This airline is based out of another country. I'm calling them. I need to speak to somebody in the Bahamas. So I told them what happened. I was like, yeah, I got to the airport and they told me they closed check-in at 9:30, which is an hour and 45 minutes ahead of time. I've never heard of that. I don't see that listed on your website. I do not see that on the ticket that I purchased. I have never heard of such a thing. They could not give us an excuse. They told us they already sent the flight manifest and there was nothing they could do about it. We did not receive any type of explanation. The customer service rep was surprised. She was like, we closed an hour ahead of time. So she was like, okay, send an email to this email address. She was like, explain everything you just told me in the email and wait for a reply. So I was like, okay. I did just that. I did not explain anything about the scam of it all or whatever. I didn't explain any of that, and I did not need to, because the fact that they closed an hour and 45 minutes ahead of time was already enough. I promise you, if I didn't live in Haiti, I probably would have said it all. But since I live here, I kept it very cute and just gave a shortened version and just said enough to get my refund. And that's exactly what happened. Even though my ticket was non-refundable, because it was a refundable ticket and then a non-refundable ticket. And of course, the one that could be refunded was more expensive, but I got the one that was $297. And that was my total, like with everything added. I think I might have paid for seats or I might have paid for something, but the total was $297. And so, yeah, that's what was refunded to my account, $297.10. Okay, I still remember it. Initially, I did not receive an email back. So I was like, okay, what's going on? Because there was a time frame. Like you get, once you send the email, you get an automated response saying we'll respond to your inquiry and whatever amount of days. The amount of time went by. Didn't hear anything. I called them back and they gave me a number directly to the people who are going to read your email. So I called them. He asked me for my email address. He pulled it up right when I'm on the phone with him. Like I'm on the phone, he's pulling it up. He read it while I was on the phone with him. He was like, "Is that all, ma'am?" I said, "Yes, it is." He's like, "Okay, you'll receive a response shortly." I didn't get an explanation or anything as to what happened, why they closed, nothing like that. I just got the refund. Like they just said they're issuing the refund. So I still don't know what that was all about. I don't know what happened with everybody else, if they bothered calling, if they wrote their email, because it wasn't as simple as just calling and getting the refund. You had to send the email. So I don't know if everybody did the same thing. So I still needed to get to my appointment, but I was holding off a bit because I really didn't want to play hopscotch through the Caribbean, going from this country to the next, then to the next. I was good. I didn't want to deal with it. I was like, let me just see what happens. Let me see if the ban is lifted. Let me see if any of the airlines come back to Haiti, which they still have not returned. There might be private airlines that are, coming back and forth, but commercial airlines, no, they still haven't returned. And so I was kind of waiting it out to see what's going on. Sunrise Airways announced that they were having flights from Cap-Haitien to Miami, but when they first made the announcement, I went to the website and the tickets were $825. Just one way. So from Haiti to Miami, $825 just for one way. And so I was like, I'm not doing that. And so, but I kept checking, periodically to see what was going on. And then one day I checked and I saw that their prices were cut in half. And so I was okay, let me book my ticket. So I booked my flight from Cap-Haitien to Miami. Sunrise Airways doesn't fly with their plane on that route. They partner with a private US airline for the route. So another airline comes to Haiti and then flies back to Miami. So I went to my appointment. Everything went well. I went in February. Everything went well. They put attachments on my teeth. I have 12 attachments in total. So 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom, same on this side. So 12 in total. They also shaved in between each tooth. I was a little nervous at first. I was like, oh my gosh. When people get veneers, or back in the day when they were giving veneers and they would like shave down their teeth and they had like little tiny teeth. So I get so nervous when I hear about shaving teeth. So they're like, no, we have to, shave the bottom, but it's very little, very subtle. You could barely see it. And then she ended up giving me 13 trays. At first she gave me 10 and I was like, doctor, I live in Haiti, okay? That's why I missed my last appointment. It's very hard to travel here, And she's like, oh, you live in Haiti? Oh, let me give you more trays. So she ended up giving me 3 more trays. So, each tray is 2 weeks. And so in total, I have 13, so that's 26 weeks. So I have 6 months worth of trays. So I don't have to go back for 6 months. Y'all, she was so nice. She was like, we can't give you more because, you have to come in. Sometimes the attachments fall off. She needs to also see my progress and all that stuff. And I was like, no, this is fine. Thank you so much. I was so happy. If you clicked on this video first, please go and watch part 1 so you could understand the whole story, okay? Because if you just watch part 2, you're going to be lost. Thank you for watching this video to the very end. This is only my second story time. The first story time was about how I met my husband here in Haiti. And this is my second one. So yeah, I don't really film story times often. If you like story times, leave a comment down below. Okay, please be sure to subscribe, thumbs up the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.